Dear child, today your angels sent you an important spiritual word, just as fate meant for you to meet him. During that period in his life, his ego and desire for self-benefit drove his entire focus. His life was all about his own wants, and he drew in people who loved him only for the image he showed. This created a false front where he saw himself as the center of his world, unable to see beyond his own ego. He was real. He lived in a world where everything outside didn't really matter. His relationships were shallow and based only on how they looked to others. People were picked just to improve his image instead of forming real emotional bonds. To him, life was like a stage. He put on a show to impress others and win their approval. However, when you entered his life, you brought with you a light of angelic purity and a healing aura that deeply affected him. Your presence brought a calmness that eased the constant chaos of his ambitions and pretenses. Your strong faith and the genuine way you lived your life deeply impressed him. You showed a strong dedication to your spiritual journey that he had never seen before. You taught him that real power comes from being true to yourself and accepting who you are, no matter what others think. He saw a reflection of a life lived with real purpose and strong honesty. Your love and honesty marked a significant departure from the superficial life he had grown accustomed to. They made him rethink his old ideas about relationships and showed him a deeper emotional bond he had never really experienced before. He felt ashamed and saw you as almost a perfect person, but he was also very touched and interested in how special you are. Your presence caught his attention and encouraged him to explore his own inner feelings, looking for a greater purpose and a link with the divine while dealing with his personal challenges. He saw you as a constant source of motivation. Your life, guided by spiritual and personal truth, brightly lit the way for him. You showed the way to a more worthwhile life, and your effect was very powerful. He started to notice that his old life and relationships, which once seemed important, now felt empty compared to the real and deep bond he felt with you. Your spiritual purity and the peaceful confidence you showed in following your path encouraged him to explore his own faith more. He wanted to heal from his past and seek a deeper sense of satisfaction. He learned from your example that real respect comes from being genuine, not from trying too hard to look perfect. He discovered not just a person but many traits and deep aspects that interested him, bringing him closer to a truth he had overlooked for a long time. This new understanding sparked in him a desire to live a meaningful life and connect with others, making him rethink his goals and work toward being someone deserving of the love and kindness you offer. He always thought of himself as just an everyday person who blended into the background. But when he first saw you, everything changed in a way he never expected. He saw you not just as a person but as a nearly magical figure with traits that felt out of his reach. He watched you with admiration, feeling you were a perfect mix of grace, intelligence, and warmth. You moved through life confidently and easily, something he could only wish to have. He observed your attraction to others from a distance. They paid close attention to what you said and laughed a bit too much at your jokes every time he saw you together. His fears seemed to increase as he observed how easily you talked, how confidently you walked, and how sincerely you cared about others. He felt awkward and unsure, struggling to have talks in a way that only showed his insecurities. He started to spend hours thinking about past conversations, examining things like your body language and how you spoke. He noticed how you tilted your head when you laughed and how your eyes sparked when you talked about something you loved. He observed how your unique charm drew people to you. With every look, he felt more distant from you, stuck in his own feelings of self-doubt while you seemed to belong to a world he thought he could never be a part of. Even a brief moment of your attention occupied his mind, clinging to his thoughts like a persistent ghost. It wasn't just a brief feeling of nervousness, it was a steady worry in his mind, telling him of what he thought he lacked. This feeling got stronger with each conversation, each look, and every little moment spent with you, making him believe he couldn't be good enough. The thought of you seemed far away and almost magical. You were more than just a person, you radiated a light that was simultaneously uplifting and overwhelming to him. You represented something unattainable, a perfect idea that felt like it came from a world out of his reach. Your presence highlighted his flaws, making him feel even more inadequate. He was afraid that just looking into your eyes would reveal everything about him. Show how deeply he longs for you, how vulnerable he feels, and how strongly he believes he doesn't belong in your life. It felt like you were a heavenly being, and he was just an ordinary person, stuck watching from afar, wanting to come closer but too scared to try. Fear consumed him. Deep down, his desire for your attention was fueled by a deep-seated belief that he could never measure up to anyone, particularly someone as special as you. Even so, his feelings for you didn't fade, they changed into a strong sense of admiration and respect. You became not just someone he cared about, but the standard he used to rate everything that was good. Your faith and light encouraged him to become the best version of himself. Even if he thought he could never be worthy enough for you, he often spent quiet nights thinking about his life, who he was, and who he wanted to be. He realized that his feelings for you were not just a temporary crush but a deep emotional and spiritual connection to the traits you had. Despite feeling constrained by his own limitations, you inspired him to strive for a better life. However, despite how strongly he felt, he still had questions. He feared that his love for you would be one-sided and never reciprocated. He thought about you being with someone else, someone who was just as graceful and confident as you. He wanted to believe that it was enough to admire you from afar, but no matter how hard he tried, his heart didn't agree. The more he tried to hide his feelings, the stronger they became, building up inside him like a flowing wave. He longed for more than just sitting quietly and watching. He wished he had the bravery to enter your life and show you how much he appreciated you, not just for your looks but for your kind voice, wise words, and strong presence. Every moment he spent imagining a life where he could share his thoughts and his dreams with you. His heart felt both weighed down and more energized. He just wanted to share how much you inspired him, even though he couldn't find the right words. He imagined talking late at night where he could share his deep feelings and prove that his respect was real and strong, growing more each day. It wasn't just about wanting to be close to you, it was about really getting to know you. I wanted to learn what made you laugh, what your dreams were, and what you believed in. He wanted to demonstrate to you that you were more than just a role model. You were deserving of a life together, deserving of taking risks, and deserving of everything. No matter how much he tried to convince himself otherwise, he couldn't relax until he found a way to tell you. His instincts pushed him to connect with you, but whenever he got close to doing it, his doubts stopped him. He was so afraid of being rejected that he worried you'd think he wasn't worth your time, or even worse, that you wouldn't notice him at all. Over time, this internal struggle kept getting bigger. He wanted to connect with you but was afraid to show his real self. He understood that in order to overcome this barrier, he needed to embrace the risk of rejection. It was a scary thought, but he realized that the pain of staying secret and never knowing if someone felt the same way was worse than facing rejection. He began to understand that the only path forward was through honesty and openness. He wanted to share his thoughts and explain how you influenced his life and how much you mean to him. He had to share his fears to show you the parts of himself that he was afraid might push you away. As he got ready to take this step, he understood that it wasn't just about showing you his value, it was also about showing himself his value. It was about getting past the fears that had stopped him. After a long time of hiding and being afraid, he chose to show himself, including his flaws, and no longer let fear take charge of his life. He would contact you not to try to win your love, but to honestly share his own thoughts. He would share how he spent nights thinking about you and how your laughter stayed in his mind even after you left. He wanted to share how much he respected and admired you, and how you inspired him to improve his life. He hoped that by being honest, he could overcome his insecurities and build a meaningful connection, regardless of whether you felt the same way. He understood that being vulnerable was essential for his personal growth and self-acceptance. As he approached you, he moved carefully, feeling the weight of the moment. His heart raced with mixed emotions, knowing he could no longer pretend or imagine different outcomes. This is it. He looked steady, but there was a softness that showed he had let down all his defenses, revealing his true feelings. He was prepared, not for victory or comfort, but for the opportunity to express himself and take a risk, despite the possibility that the words he had repeatedly practiced could disappoint him. He inhaled deeply, grounding himself in the realization that this moment was not about the outcome. It was not about your reaction or whether it aligned with his highest aspirations. No, it was about stepping forward even when feeling scared and unsure. It was about respecting his own bravery to be present and to make his voice heard. In those important moments, he understood something important. His value didn't depend on how you saw him, whether you accepted him, or how much you cared for him. His worth came from being open and honest about his feelings, even when it made him feel vulnerable. He chose to be true to himself by accepting his feelings and allowing them to come out without doubt or fear stopping him. No matter what happened next, he understood that this brave act would define him, not by how others reacted but by the courage it took. He now realized that love isn't about owning someone or needing approval. It's about sharing who you are, having the courage to show yourself, and truly seeing others. As he talked to you, his voice was calm but emotional. He felt a burden ease for the first time, and he truly felt free. He broke free from the limits he created for himself and was able to love and be loved for who he really was, not who he thought he should be. In this freedom, he found a peace that had been missing from his life. No matter how others reacted, he realized he had taken the biggest step of his life. He opened his heart, not just to you but to the chance of living a life free from fear, filled with hope and honesty.